Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
April 2, 2021, the Good Friday edition. We have no lead story today, so we'll begin with a fairly unbelievable story, which is reported on FIFA.com. FIFA President Gianni Infantino addressed the G20 Anti-Corruption Working Group on FIFA's working against corruption in sports. Yes, indeed, perhaps, one of the most corrupt organizations in professional sports is now addressing corruption in sports. So it happened on April Fool's Day, so that's probably enough said. But FIFA is saying they're committed to reforms and a fully transparent world bidding process, separation of political and executive powers, appropriate internal controls, checks and balances, auditing and monitoring, a code of conduct, all of the things that you would like to see. Whether FIFA will live up to this, it's FIFA, so who knows? Next up, reporting in the New York Times, there is a $1 billion tax fight going on right now between the Internal Revenue and Bristol Squibb Myers. The IRS got wind of a tax shelter scam that Bristol Myers is running, and it involves patents that had been fully amortized in the United States, so they moved their ownership over to Ireland, where they still had value and could amortize them and take additional deductions. So whether this passes IRS muster or not, of course, is unknown at this point. Whether the IRS would actually have the backbone to litigate is even more problematic, given how badly they were gutted under the Trump administration. So another corporation with dodgy tax status, and the rest of us pay for it. Next up, President Biden has weighed into the Georgia Jim Crow anti-election or election suppression laws by voicing support for moving baseball's All-Star game out of Atlanta and the state of Georgia. He has called Georgia's new slate of anti-voting or voter suppression laws a blatant attack on the right to vote, the Constitution, and the good conscience. He later described it as Jim Crow on steroids. I would say perhaps Jim Crow for the 21st century. Nevertheless, it's clearly designed to take away the right to vote, aimed, of course, at minorities. No real surprise from any Republicans there. But whether putting himself in this position in a partisan fight is very good to see the president do this. So these Jim Crow laws have to be stopped. They're clearly unethical, illegal, and probably unconstitutional. And for the president to speak out against them is certainly appropriate. And finally, reporting in the Wall Street Journal, financial institutions have some questions over the new corporate ownership registry for industry. Compliance officers at major financial institutions are questioning whether the new corporate registry will help them to comply with customer due diligence or simply impose new burdens and legal risks. The answer depends largely on how government officials implement sweeping new AML update or change, and how FinCEN, who's responsible for writing the regulations, will maintain that database. So every compliance practitioner has a stake in this, although right now the information will be maintained in a database available to financial institutions. It would not surprise me if it becomes available at some point to corporate compliance or corporations. And that, of course, would be a big boon for everyone, particularly in the area of knowing who the bad guys and miscreants are, and, of course, for underlying due diligence. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow.